Some people poke at your emotions just to feel important. Think about that. A person can feel powerful simply because they ruined your peace for 5 minutes. Pathetic, but dangerous. Because if you are emotionally impulsive, they can control your entire day. One message, one insult, one cold expression, and boom, your mind is burning. Your chest gets tight, your thoughts become loud, your emotions start running like frightened children. That is how people lose themselves. Reaction by reaction. Most humans are predictable. Insult them, they explode. Ignore them, they chase. Praise them, they obey. Simple creatures. But then, there are those rare people pain transformed. People who learn silence through disappointment. They no longer react immediately. They pause. They observe. They breathe first. And that tiny pause changes everything. Because emotional control is terrifying. Not loud control, quiet control. The kind where someone insults you and you just stare at them calmly. No defense, no emotional performance, no panic. That calmness makes weak people uncomfortable because now they cannot enter your mind anymore. You know what destroys manipulators? Confusion. Not revenge, confusion. When they cannot understand why you stayed calm, they begin fighting themselves inside their own head. And honestly, some of the strongest people alive look emotionally detached, not because life was easy, but because reacting to everything almost destroyed them once. So now they protect their peace like a wounded animal protects its final breath. Quietly, carefully, cold hands, heavy eyes, tired soul. And after a while, people stop trying to control them because they realize something frightening. You cannot manipulate someone who already made peace with silence. Most people will call you different the moment you stop reacting emotionally. Not stronger, not wiser, different. Because calmness changes your face. Your eyes stop searching for approval. Your voice becomes slower. Your presence becomes heavier. Pain does that. You start noticing things normal people ignore. Fake concern, forced laughter, respect that only appears when you are useful. And once you notice it, you cannot unsee it anymore. That is the curse of awareness. The innocent version of you dies quietly, not dramatically, quietly. Some of you are still trying to be understood by people who already decided to misunderstand you. Why? Why keep explaining your heart to people committed to seeing you incorrectly? That exhaustion, that deep emotional exhaustion, comes from repeating yourself to deaf souls. Listen carefully. Not every disrespect deserves a reaction. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every betrayal deserves revenge. Sometimes the strongest response is the absence of one. Because silence forces people to sit alone with their own behavior, and many people cannot survive that mirror. They want noise from you, begging, crying, anger, anything that proves they still control your emotions. But when you remain calm, their power begins collapsing quietly. And no one talks about how lonely emotional control really is. Because sometimes you stay silent while your chest is screaming. You smile politely while disappointment tears through your ribs. But you learn something important. Peace is expensive, and reacting to every fool costs too much. You know what hurts the most? Realizing you wasted years reacting to people who were never emotionally mature enough to understand you in the first place. That realization changes the way a person speaks, the way they trust, the way they love. Because after enough disappointment, your nervous system becomes tired. Not weak, tired. There is a difference. Weak people react to everything. Strong people choose carefully what deserves access to their emotions. That control is not natural. It is built. Built from betrayal. Built from humiliation. Built from nights where you sat alone replaying conversations in your head. Thinking, what did I do wrong? Sometimes nothing. Sometimes you simply loved people who only understood your value after losing access to you. Humans are strange. They ignore calm loyalty, then panic when it disappears. And honestly, some people do not miss you. They miss controlling your kindness. That is why your silence irritates them, because silence removes emotional access. No arguments, no explanations, no desperate paragraphs at 2 a.m. Just distance. Cold, quiet distance. And distance reveals truth faster than confrontation ever will. Watch carefully what people do when they can no longer control your emotions. Some become kinder. Some become crueler. Some expose themselves completely. Interesting, isn't it? How quickly masks fall when reactions disappear. The painful part is, emotional discipline often looks like coldness from the outside. Nobody sees the storm you swallowed to stay calm. Nobody hears the scream trapped behind your teeth. Nobody notices how many times you wanted to break, but chose dignity instead. That quiet restraint, that terrifying self-control, is sometimes the only thing holding a damaged soul together. So no, being calm does not mean you feel nothing. It means you learned not every emotion deserves an audience. There are people walking around right now who still believe they own access to your emotions. People who think one message can destroy your peace, one insult, one memory, one cold little sentence. Maybe once upon a time, maybe before the disappointment, before the sleepless nights, before reality carved exhaustion into your face. But pain changes people quietly, not loudly. That is the funny part. Most transformations happen in silence. No dramatic music, no speeches, no audience. Just a tired human being sitting alone, finally deciding they cannot survive like this anymore. And from that moment, something dangerous begins growing inside them. Emotional discipline. Not emotionlessness, discipline. There is a difference. Emotionless people become empty. Disciplined people become controlled storms. Calm outside, chaos underneath. Some of you mastered smiling while your heart was collapsing. Mastered speaking normally while anxiety crushed your chest. Mastered silence because nobody truly listened anyway. And eventually, that silence became your armor. Funny, right? The same people who called you too emotional become terrified when you stop reacting emotionally at all. Because now, they cannot reach you the same way anymore. Manipulators need emotional openings. Guilt, fear, loneliness, attachment. That is how they enter. But once a person learns self-control, those doors begin closing one by one. And people panic when the version of you they controlled disappears. And they notice the delayed replies, the shorter conversations, the calmer eyes, the absence of desperation. And suddenly, they feel powerless. You want to know something sad? Most humans only respect emotional boundaries after they realize they lost emotional influence. That is why some souls become colder with time. Not because they hate people, because they got tired of bleeding in places where nobody cared. There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes from understanding too much, understanding intentions, understanding manipulation, understanding fake affection. After that, innocence becomes difficult. You stop reacting quickly. You stop trusting easily. You stop explaining yourself endlessly. Not out of arrogance, out of survival. Because constantly reacting to disrespect slowly destroys the nervous system. And one day, you realize peace feels better than proving your point. Peace, real peace, is a very lonely thing sometimes. Because the moment you stop reacting emotionally, you start losing people who were only attached to your reactions. Some people never loved your soul. They loved access. Access to your attention, access to your softness, access to your emotional availability. And when that access disappears, their behavior changes frighteningly fast. Watch carefully how people behave when guilt no longer controls you, when fear no longer controls you, when loneliness no longer controls you. That is where truth reveals itself, not during comfort, during emotional distance. Because distance removes performance. People stop pretending when they think they lost influence over you. And honestly, some of the calmest people you meet are simply exhausted survivors. Not gurus, not saints, survivors. People who spent years reacting, years over-explaining, over-loving, over-forgiving, years giving emotional speeches to people who secretly enjoyed watching them break. Cruel world, isn't it? There are people who provoke emotional reactions just to reassure themselves they still matter to you, One cold message, one disappearance, one act of disrespect, and then they wait. Wait for your anger, wait for your sadness, wait for your emotional collapse, because your reaction feeds their ego. But when you stay calm, when you breathe slowly, when you look at disrespect without instantly exploding, something terrifying happens. The manipulation loses rhythm, and manipulators hate losing rhythm. That is why emotional control feels unnatural at first. Your body wants revenge, your pride wants noise, your pain wants expression. But wisdom whispers something different. Stay still. Not every insult deserves your heartbeat. Not every fool deserves access to your peace. Some people are addicted to chaos. If they cannot create chaos inside themselves, they create it inside others. And sensitive people suffer the most around them, because sensitive hearts react deeply. They absorb tones, expressions, silences, changes in energy. That sensitivity can become dangerous if not controlled. Because emotionally reactive people become easy to manipulate, easy to provoke, easy to distract, easy to exhaust. And the world notices that weakness very quickly. Some of you lost years of your life trying to defend yourselves emotionally to people committed to misunderstanding you. That pain changes a human being. You stop talking so much, stop trying to convince everyone, stop explaining your intentions every 5 minutes. Not because you became cold-hearted, because you became tired-hearted. There is a difference, a huge difference. The loudest people in the room are often the easiest to control. But quiet people are difficult. You never fully know what they feel, what they know, what they are planning, what they are silently healing from. And that uncertainty makes weak minds uncomfortable. Because humans desperately want emotional predictability. That is why emotionally disciplined people appear intimidating without trying. Not because they are aggressive, because they are unreadable. And unreadable people are hard to manipulate. But nobody talks about the sadness behind that calmness. Nobody talks about how many disappointments created it, how many nights created it, how many betrayals taught it. Sometimes silence is not confidence. Sometimes silence is exhaustion, a soul simply becoming too tired to keep reacting the same way. Too tired to argue, too tired to chase, too tired to emotionally perform for people who already made their choice about you. And eventually, peace becomes more important than being understood. That is when people lose control over you forever. You know something strange about emotionally disciplined people? Most of them were not born calm. No, they became calm after life embarrassed their emotions enough times. After enough betrayal, the nervous system adapts. Not perfectly, just enough to survive. Because constantly reacting to pain is exhausting. Reacting to disrespect, reacting to manipulation, reacting to rejection. Eventually the soul says, I cannot keep living like this. And from that moment, a different kind of strength begins forming. Quiet strength, the dangerous kind. Not loud dominance, not fake alpha performances. Real control is invisible. It is the ability to remain composed while your emotions are begging to escape your chest. That takes terrifying discipline, especially in a world addicted to emotional impulsiveness. Look around. People react instantly to everything now. every opinion, every message, every insult, every disappointment. Human beings are becoming emotionally programmable. One notification changes their mood. One comment ruins their day. One rejection destroys their self-worth. And manipulators love that. Emotionally impulsive people are easy to steer, easy to provoke, easy to bait, easy to emotionally exhaust. But calm people? Calm people interrupt the cycle. They pause before reacting. They observe before speaking. They breathe before deciding. And that tiny delay, that tiny moment of self-control, changes their entire life. Because most emotional damage happens in moments. One impulsive text, one emotional decision, one angry reaction, one desperate attachment. A single emotional second can create years of regret. Some of you know exactly what I mean. You trusted too quickly, loved too deeply, explained yourself too much, stayed too long where your spirit was slowly dying. And now your heart behaves differently. Not softer, not harder, carefully. There is a sadness that comes with awareness, a loneliness. Because once you understand manipulation, you start noticing it everywhere. Fake apologies, strategic affection, conditional kindness. You start hearing the hidden meanings behind words, seeing the ego behind fake concern, feeling dishonesty before evidence even appears. And honestly, that awareness can make the world feel emotionally cold sometimes. Because emotionally disciplined people struggle to pretend. They notice too much. They notice the delayed respect after success, the sudden kindness after distance, the fake appreciation once access disappears. Humans reveal themselves most clearly when they feel they are losing control over you. That is when masks crack. That is when intentions leak out. And the painful part? Many people only value your presence after your emotional availability disappears. Cruel little creatures. They ignore loyalty for years, then panic the moment loyalty becomes silent. But emotionally disciplined people learn something important eventually. You do not need to react to prove your worth. You do not need to scream to defend your peace. You do not need endless explanations for people committed to misunderstanding you. Silence can speak. Distance can speak. Self-control can speak. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a damaged soul can say is nothing at all. Just calm eyes, steady breathing, and the quiet decision to never surrender their peace so easily again. Have you ever noticed how some people become irritated the moment they realize they can no longer disturb your peace? That irritation says everything. Because emotional control removes entertainment from toxic people. No drama, no emotional explosion, no desperate explaining. Just calm eyes staring back at them. And calm eyes make guilty people nervous. Especially people who are counting on your emotional weakness. You see, there are individuals who study your reactions quietly. What hurts you, what triggers you, what makes you chase, what makes you panic. Not because they love you deeply, because emotional predictability gives them comfort. If they can predict your reactions, they can influence your behavior. Simple. Humans are more psychological than they pretend. That is why emotionally reactive people suffer constantly. The world keeps pressing their buttons. One criticism ruins their mood. One rejection destroys their confidence. One cold reply steals their sleep. That is not peace. That is emotional captivity. And many people never escape it. They spend years giving strangers control over their heartbeat. Imagine allowing somebody's temporary mood to control your entire nervous system. Imagine destroying your inner peace over people who sleep peacefully after hurting you. No. At some point, a person must become emotionally disciplined. Not emotionless, disciplined. There is wisdom in that difference. Because suppressing emotion destroys the soul, but controlling emotional expression, that creates strength. Real strength is not screaming louder. Real strength is remaining steady while your emotions beg for chaos. That battle is invisible. Nobody claps for it. Nobody notices the restraint. Nobody sees how many reactions you swallowed just to protect your peace. And honestly, some reactions deserve swallowing. Some people are baiting you emotionally, baiting your anger, baiting your sadness, baiting your impulsiveness. Because once you lose emotional control, they gain psychological control. That is how arguments become manipulation, how guilt becomes a weapon, how emotionally unstable people drain everyone around them. And the saddest part? Sensitive people usually blame themselves first, always themselves. What if I overreacted? What if I'm difficult? What if I'm too emotional? Meanwhile, the manipulator sits comfortably, watching your mind attack itself for them. That is why emotional awareness is survival now. You must know your triggers, your emotional weaknesses, your attachment patterns. Otherwise, the world will study them for you. Pain taught some of you an important lesson. Not everybody deserves immediate emotional access to you. Not everybody deserves your vulnerability. Not everybody deserves explanations. Sometimes silence protects dignity better than words ever could. And yes, remaining calm hurts sometimes, especially when your chest feels heavy, especially when disappointment burns inside your throat, especially when you want to scream, but choose silence instead. That silence is not weakness. It is maturity mixed with exhaustion. Because after enough betrayal, the soul stops reacting dramatically. Not because it stopped feeling, because it learned emotional chaos changes nothing. People reveal themselves eventually anyway. Disrespect reveals them. Power reveals them. Distance reveals them. You do not need emotional explosions to discover truth anymore. Truth becomes obvious when you stop interrupting people with reactions. So breathe slowly, observe quietly, and never give temporary people permanent control over your inner peace. There is another thing nobody tells you about emotional control. It becomes addictive. The first time you stay calm during disrespect, something shifts inside you. Because you suddenly realize Most conflicts lose power when you stop feeding them emotionally. And that realization changes your entire perspective on people. You begin noticing how emotionally impulsive the world really is. Everybody reacting instantly. Instant outrage, instant attachment, instant hatred, instant obsession. Nobody pauses anymore. Nobody breathes first. Nobody asks, is this even worth my peace? That question alone can save years of emotional suffering. Because not every emotional impulse deserves action. Some feelings should simply pass through you quietly, like storms outside a closed window. But immature people cannot do that. They become every emotion they feel. Anger controls them. Jealousy controls them. Attention controls them. And then they wonder why their lives feel chaotic. Chaos follows emotionally undisciplined people everywhere. Relationships, friendships, family, work. Because wherever emotional impulsiveness goes, destruction quietly follows behind it. You know what emotionally mature people understand? Temporary emotion can create permanent damage. One impulsive sentence, one uncontrolled reaction, one emotional decision during pain, and suddenly years are destroyed. That is why calmness is powerful. Not dramatic calmness, real calmness, the kind built through suffering. Because anybody can stay calm when life feels easy. The real test begins when your pride feels attacked, when betrayal enters the room, when disappointment tightens around your chest. That is where emotional discipline becomes sacred. Not for appearances, for survival. Some of you grew up around emotional chaos constantly, shouting, manipulation, tension, unpredictability. Your nervous system never truly rested. So now your body reacts to everything automatically. Even small things feel dangerous. Even silence feels threatening sometimes. That kind of emotional exhaustion changes a person deeply. You stop wanting excitement. You stop craving loud connections. You start craving peace, quiet, safety, stability. Funny enough, those simple things become luxuries after enough psychological pain. And people who never suffered emotionally often misunderstand calm individuals completely. They think silence means arrogance, distance means hatred, restraint means weakness. No. Sometimes restraint is taking everything inside you, not to become cruel after what life did to you. Sometimes calmness is a wounded soul, trying very hard not to spread its pain onto others. That battle deserves respect. Because emotionally disciplined people could easily become destructive. They understand manipulation. They understand emotional pressure. They understand psychological weakness. But they choose restraint. That choice matters a lot. The world glorifies loud power too much. Aggression, dominance, intimidation. But honestly, the most dangerous people are often painfully calm. The ones who observe more than they speak. The ones who control expression carefully. The ones who do not reveal every emotional movement immediately. Those people learn something important through suffering. Emotions are real, but emotions are terrible leaders. If you let every feeling control your behavior, your life eventually belongs to your impulses instead of your wisdom. And impulses are unstable. That is why peace requires discipline. Real peace is maintained, protected, guarded carefully from unnecessary emotional chaos, especially in a world full of people trying to provoke reactions for entertainment. People provoking jealousy, provoking insecurity, provoking anger, just to feel powerful for a few seconds. Pathetic behavior, but common. That is why emotionally disciplined people become harder to manipulate over time. Not because they stopped caring, because they stopped reacting instantly. That tiny pause changes everything. You know what emotional maturity feels like sometimes? Grief. Real grief, because part of becoming emotionally disciplined is accepting painful truths about people. Not everybody wants peace. Not everybody values honesty. Not everybody feels guilty after hurting others. That realization hurts sensitive souls deeply, especially people who always tried to understand everyone. Some of you spent years making excuses for disrespect. They're just stressed. They didn't mean it. They had a hard life. And maybe that was true. But pain explains behavior. It does not excuse cruelty. There comes a moment where emotional maturity means stopping the cycle, stopping the endless emotional rescue missions. Because some people do not want healing, they want control. And controlling emotionally reactive people is easy, very easy. A little attention, a little distance, a little confusion. And suddenly the sensitive person starts drowning inside their own thoughts, overthinking every word, every silence, every tiny shift in energy. That level of emotional hyper-awareness is exhausting. Your body never rests. Your mind never rests. Your heart never fully relaxes. And eventually, you become tired of carrying emotional chaos that does not belong to you. That exhaustion creates boundaries, not hatred, boundaries. There is a huge difference between becoming cold and becoming careful. Cold people stop feeling. Careful people still feel deeply. They simply stop giving unlimited emotional access to everyone. Because unlimited access destroys peace. Some people enter your life carrying confusion inside them. And if you are not disciplined emotionally, their chaos becomes your chaos. That is why calmness is protection, not performance, protection. People think emotionally disciplined individuals are detached from reality. No. Usually they feel reality more intensely than everyone else. That is exactly why they learned restraint. Because they know how dangerous uncontrolled emotion can become. How quickly pain can turn into destruction. How easily loneliness can make someone emotionally impulsive. So they slow themselves down, breathe slower, speak slower, trust slower. And honestly, that slowness saves them. The world pressures people to react instantly. Instant replies, instant opinions, instant emotional exposure. But wisdom takes time. Real understanding takes time. Healing takes time. And impatient people hate emotionally grounded individuals because calmness exposes emotional instability immediately. Nothing frustrates manipulative people more than somebody who refuses to react impulsively. No emotional panic, no desperate energy, no uncontrollable outbursts. Just observation, silence, restraint. That kind of emotional balance feels almost unnatural nowadays because the modern world profits from emotional chaos. Fear, outrage, comparison, addiction to attention. People are emotionally exhausted everywhere, and exhausted minds react faster. That is why protecting inner peace has become a form of survival now, not luxury, survival. Some of you are finally learning that every emotional reaction costs energy. Every argument, every explanation, every attempt to prove your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. And one day, you simply become too tired to keep wasting your soul like that. Not bitter, just aware. Aware that peace matters more than emotional performances for temporary people. That awareness changes your entire life quietly. After a while, you stop asking yourself why people hurt you. You start asking a different question. Why did I ignore the signs for so long? That question is heavier because now you are forced to confront your own emotional patterns. The need to be understood, the fear of abandonment, the habit of over-giving love to emotionally careless people. Some wounds do not come from cruelty alone. They come from self-betrayal, from ignoring your intuition repeatedly just to keep people in your life. You knew they were draining your peace. You knew their presence made your nervous system anxious. You knew their affection felt inconsistent. But loneliness can make human beings tolerate dangerous emotional environments, especially people with soft hearts, people who still hope, people who still search for goodness even after disappointment. And honestly, that softness is beautiful. But unprotected softness becomes self-destruction. The world is not gentle with emotionally open people. There are individuals who will use your empathy against you, use your patience against you, use your loyalty against you. And the frightening part, they often do it smiling. That is why emotional awareness matters so much. Not paranoia, awareness. There is a difference. Emotionally mature people observe behavior carefully. Consistency, respect, effort, energy. Because words can perform, behavior tells truth. People reveal themselves through patterns eventually. The selfish patterns, the manipulative patterns, the emotionally immature patterns. And once you see the pattern clearly, reacting emotionally becomes less tempting. Because now you understand something important. Not every problem requires emotional participation. Some people are fighting internal battles that have nothing to do with you. Their insecurity, their ego, their unresolved pain. If you absorb every damaged emotion thrown at you, your soul eventually collapses under the weight. That is why boundaries feel lonely sometimes, because emotionally unhealthy people often interpret boundaries as rejection. But protecting your peace is not cruelty. Protecting your nervous system is not selfishness. Protecting your emotional stability is wisdom. Funny enough, people usually understand your value only after losing unlimited access to you. When the constant availability disappears, when the emotional reactions disappear, when the endless forgiveness disappears, suddenly they panic. Not because your pain mattered to them, because your accessibility did. That realization changes people deeply. You stop trying to convince everyone to stay. You stop over-explaining your intentions. You stop emotionally performing just to keep temporary connections alive. There is power in emotional detachment from chaos, not cold detachment from humanity, detachment from chaos. The ability to say, "This situation is disturbing my peace, and I refuse to let it consume me." That ability saves lives quietly. Some people spend years trapped inside emotional warfare, constant stress, constant tension, constant overthinking. Their body survives, but their spirit slowly becomes exhausted. And eventually, they either learn emotional discipline or life breaks them repeatedly until they do. That is the harsh truth nobody likes hearing. Peace requires responsibility. Responsibility over thoughts, over reactions, over emotional impulses. And honestly, most people never fully master that battle because reacting emotionally feels easier. Immediate anger feels powerful. Immediate revenge feels satisfying. But calm restraint? That takes inner strength. Real inner strength. Especially when your heart is hurt. Especially when disappointment burns inside your chest. Especially when silence feels heavier than screaming. Yet you stay calm anyway. Not because you feel nothing, because you finally understand protecting your peace matters more than winning emotional battles with broken people. Some people will never understand your silence because they only understood the version of you that reacted emotionally. The anxious version, the available version, the version always trying to fix everything. But healing changes behavior quietly. You stop chasing closure from people committed to confusion. You stop forcing conversations that drain your soul. You stop begging for basic respect. That is not ego. That is exhaustion finally becoming wisdom. There is a moment where emotionally mature people realize something painful. Not everybody deserves explanations. Some people already decided how they want to see you. No amount of emotional honesty changes that. And honestly, trying to constantly defend your heart to the wrong people becomes a form of self-harm. Because every unnecessary emotional battle steals energy from your peace. That is why emotionally disciplined individuals protect their attention carefully. Attention is power. Energy is power. Inner peace is power. And the world is full of people unconsciously trying to steal all three. Through drama, through guilt, through emotional manipulation. But once you become aware of those patterns, you stop reacting automatically. You pause, you observe, you breathe first. That small pause saves people from destroying themselves emotionally. Because temporary emotions create permanent mistakes every day. Angry words, impulsive choices, desperate actions. Calmness prevents regret. That is why emotional control feels lonely sometimes. You begin outgrowing chaos other people still enjoy. And eventually, you stop needing everyone to understand your silence. You only need peace to understand why it became necessary.